everyone, and happy September! I'm Via from Via Creates, and today we are going to be creating this bullet journal spread. I have decided for the next few months I'm going to do deer themed spreads because they're one of my favorite animals. So we started off with my favorite deer of all, the pudu, which if you don't know, it is the smallest deer in the world and they are just absolutely the cutest. I'm also starting a new bullet journal this month, which is always exciting, so I'm just actually going to go straight to the first page and start making the spread. Before I created the spread, I didn't have a full idea of what I wanted to do, so I first got out some different colors of paper to determine what I wanted to use. I decided that the cream colored paper would make the perfect accent piece, so I tore out the top of the paper after measuring the pages of my book and glued it in to create a kind of rough cut edge that I would use for my title. One of my favorite techniques for creating a title that pops is by writing it out on a separate piece of white paper, cutting around the letters to create a white border, then gluing those letters onto a different color of paper, cutting them out once more to create another border, and then gluing them into the final page. It does take a lot of steps, but I love the effect, and in this case I'm actually doing each letter separately so that I can create kind of a whimsical title design by placing the letters at different levels to just add interest to the page and make it look really different from kind of my previous designs that I've done this year. For the basic lettering, I'm using Crayola super tip markers in light brown and then a darker brown to create an ombre look. And then I am using a glitter brown gel pen to outline and add a shadow. I love glitter so much. It's kind of a problem, but I think that it really makes the letters just extra fancy for the spread, and I love how when you hold it up to the light, it really shines and adds another layer of dimension to the spread. When I started to cut out the letters, I was not too concerned with cutting them to very specifically the shape of the letter or very close to the edges. I wanted it to be more of a kind of bubbly look, something that looked more like it could be a sticker versus something that was like really perfectly cut out. But that's just my personal preference, so if you want to cut them out exactly to the letters, I think that could also look really cool depending on the color paper that you put in the background. Now that I have each letter and number cut out, I'm going to glue them onto this brown construction paper and basically just repeat the same process of cutting them out so that you can see a border of the brown around the white. Since we're finally done with that, now I'm just going to figure out how exactly I want them to be placed on the page. Before I made a final decision, I wanted to cut out some of my other elements, so I got out my washi tapes, and I also am taking this is actually wrapping paper, and cutting out some washi tape like strips to go along with it. And I think that putting these on the page really helped me to see where I wanted everything to go and how I wanted it to be aligned. For the spread, I've just been using a glue stick to stick things to the page, but I've also used just clear Elmers glue and a paintbrush in the past, and I know a lot of people also like to use glue dots. Off the camera, I sketched out the rest of the design elements for this spread, including the deer and some like vines and leaves that I wanted to include just to fill out the rest of the page. So I am using both my brown gel pen as well as a brown papermate pen to draw the vines and leaves. I thought that this would be a really nice autumn touch, and I just did a very simple design that I carried throughout because I didn't want it to take away from the main part of the page, which was the pudus. I really like the variation of using 2 different colors for the vines because I think it keeps from making you feel like the spread is too full or too busy, especially since the dark brown can be a really heavy color and you don't want that to become too much of the focal point of the spread. In another attempt to coordinate the colors together on the white parts of the paper where I drew the vines, I also drew a little bit of an outline in whatever the opposite color that I drew the leaves in. Before I moved on to painting in the pudus, I added more washi tape because I was just like adding a lot. To create a sense of consistency within this page, I mixed a dark brown watercolor that was very similar to the dark brown of the felt tip pen that I used to draw the vines. And this is the color that I used to color in the pudus, and it did take me a little bit to get the correct opacity. At first I put it on a little bit too thinly, but the good thing about watercolors is that they're very buildable, and this paper in my journal is very thick, so I didn't have to worry about it bleeding through. I really wanted to get a consistent coat of the brown. I wasn't using it as shadows or anything like that because I wanted to focus more on the form rather than the coloring and the shading in this spread. So I only left white in parts like the nose or the spots or the ears to signify that those were the shapes that were there. And I also added little lines of white to show movement or curves within the pudus. I did a combination of adults and babies because even though the adults are full-sized for their species, they're just still so mini and look like babies. So basically, if they have spots, they're a fawn. If they don't, they're an adult. So my favorite one is probably the little one that has the horns on the top of his head. I just think that they're so cute. My greatest dream is to one day be able to hold a pudu. I don't think that's really allowed, but if that could happen one day, I would be really happy. As what usually happens when I bullet journal, I splashed paint in a place that it was not supposed to be, so I covered it up with a bit of paint, and I decided to make the spot less noticeable that I would draw vines growing out of the pudus backs, kind of make it more of a mystical nature spirit sort of thing. And though it wasn't my intention when I started out, I think that this ended up really tying the whole spread together. Since I was at the end of making this spread, I run in with some finishing touches, including grabbing my white gel pen to emphasize some of the white spots on the pudus, as well as drawing a few extra lines and spots to emphasize the form a little bit more. Fall is my favorite season, so I looked at my inventory of Pinterest fall quotes and found one by F. Scott Fitzgerald that says, "Life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall." I just think it was super cute, so I added it along the side of the page in an empty spot. I couldn't help myself. I just didn't think that the spread was finished until I used the same pens that I used for the vines and the leaves to draw in little sparkles and circles over the whole of the spread. And here she is. Considering that I didn't start out with a solid plan at all, I think that this ended up being the perfect fall spread. I love the elements with the glitter and the monochromatic look with the pops of different patterns of washi tapes. And of course, the super cute pudus to be featured in the spread. I hope that this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful day.